Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Criminally Charged with me, Rob Ray. In this episode we're going to look at Jack the Stripper, or as it's also known, the Hammersmith Murders. Like its namesake, Jack the Ripper, the cases of Jack the Stripper have gone unsolved to this very day. So sit back, relax and join me for the case of Jack the Stripper. The Hammersmith Murders were a series of murders in London, England in 1964 and 1965. The victims, all prostitutes, were found undressed in or near the River Thames, leading the press to nickname the killer Jack the Stripper, which is of course a reference to Jack the Ripper. Despite the intense media interest and one of the biggest manhunts in the history of Scotland Yard, the case is still unsolved to this day, and all forensic evidence gathered at the time is believed to have been destroyed or lost. He struck seemingly from out of nowhere. A small area of London lived in fear and that he would kill again. Women lived in fear that they had the potential to be the monster's next victim. Several prostitutes were slain in secret and left in the gruesome way that they were left. The first victim was Hannah Tailford, who was discovered in the river under a pier towards the Upper Mall close to Hammersmith Bridge on February 2nd, 1964. Her underwear was stuffed into her mouth. 2 months later, on April the 8th, Irene Lockwood, 26, was found a few hundred yards upstream on the Thames foreshore. Then on April the 24th, a 22-year-old woman, Helen Bartholomew, was found dead in an alleyway off Swincombe Avenue in Brentford, West London. This time there was a clue: small flecks of paint on the body. The same pattern of paint colours was also detected on the body of Mary Fleming, who was found in a sitting position at the entrance of a garage in Berrymead Road, Acton, on July 14th. Detectives were still trying to track down motorcar spray painting promises when Margaret McGowan, who went by the name Frances Brown, was found dead on November the 25th. Her body was hidden under the rubble and a dustbin lid in a civil defence car park in Horton Street in Kensington. Finally, on February the 16th, 1965, Bridget Birdie O'Hara was found behind a shed on the Heron Trading Estate in Acton. Much speculation has been and continues to surround this case, and it is still a case that remains unsolved to this day. Detective Chief Superintendent John DeRose was recalled from his holiday at the time to lead the manhunt. He had policewomen at the time dressed up as prostitutes to walk the streets of Notting Hill and sent officers across West London, but the police had little success to force the killer into exposing himself. DeRose announced that he was gradually whittling down the suspect list, but the arrest never came, and the gamble appeared to have didn't pay off. DeRose later revealed in his book Murder Was My Business that his prime suspect had committed suicide before they could arrest him. The suspect was identified by writer David Seabrook as Mungo Ireland, who gassed himself with exhaust fumes in his garage on March the 3rd, 1965. Ireland left a note reading, "I can't stick it any longer. P.S. To save you and the police looking for me, I'll be in the garage." There are now conflicting opinions, however, that this man didn't do anything and it was just a frame job by the police, that they needed to pin this on somebody, so they pinned it on him and he couldn't defend himself. But there's still some that do believe he is the murderer, or was the murderer. Another potential suspect was boxer Freddie Mills. A former Sun reporter claimed the killer was no other than boxer Freddie Mills, who was found shot dead in his car in Soho in July 1965 in a suspected suicide, but again this has never been proved and the case still remains unsolved to this day. As many people have their own theories on this case and what they believe or who they believe did the murders, I would love to know your views on it. Who do you think is the main suspect? Do you think it is any of the two that I mentioned, or could it be somebody else? The fact is that all the evidence has been lost or destroyed. They didn't have a great deal of evidence to begin with, but everything they did have is gone. And this Jack the Stripper seemingly just disappeared, just like Jack the Ripper did, just vanished into thin air. So that concludes this week's episode of Criminally Charged. In this episode, we did look into the case of Jack the Stripper, the still ongoing unsolved case after many decades. Perhaps this is one that will just go to history and, like Jack the Ripper, will never be solved. As always, thank you for watching, and I shall see you next week in the next episode of Criminally Charged.